and the resentment comes back sometimes. You got to just deal with it. It gets easier and easier, but it was pretty hard at first. There was a lot of anger uh, and that kind of stuff, of course. But yeah, it's like you said, it's what's best for our daughter, and that's the way I look at it.
All right. Thank you guys. Welcome back to another episode of Daddy Issues. And today we got on Jeremy. I'm going to have him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his story.
All right, yeah, Dan. So yeah, I'm Jeremy, as you said. I'm a single dad, 50-50 custody of my daughter. And I definitely went through a pretty rough patch with the divorce and everything, and the betrayal and all the stuff. Was hard. It was hard on me and hard on my daughter. But I got to say, coming through it and ending up where I'm at now, which every day is a journey, right? There's still tons of work to be done. Just the way that my relationship has grown with my daughter and the way that she's grown as an individual, I'd say are really things that have been the most positive that have come out from my experience. And a part of that is just her mom is a real helicopter parent, and I wasn't the father I wanted to be, honestly, because I didn't really allow myself to be, because I was kind of following her lead on a lot of stuff and letting her take the reins, and kind of held me back from really working with our daughter and teaching her stuff and doing cool stuff together. And I never really, I didn't get a lot of time alone with her either, because she was a stay-at-home mom and she was always there, so everything was done as a family, and I didn't really get that daddy-daughter time. So that's been a real positive for both me and my daughter. Where she was really kind of falling behind from her friends, from doing, kind of anything like physical or just, coming out of her own. She was very kind of reserved and held back, which I always just kind of figured was fine. It's who she is, but it was also wasn't really being pushed.
Yeah, I did notice on your Facebook. I saw that you're very outdoorsy. You're doing a lot of things outdoors, but I always get that with a lot of the dads, because it almost seems like they're kind of working. The mother's at home, a stay-at-home mom or what have you. Uh, do you think by separating, you were kind of pushed you had to be a better father because now you have that time with your daughter and you have to be present, you have to be a better dad? I don't know if better is the word, but you have to be more, present with
Yeah,
her.
no, that's a good way of putting it. And yeah, yes, I have to be. I wanted to be, but it did put me in that position of like having to step up and really, but it, in a good way. Like it wasn't like a negative, like, oh, I have to do this. This was like, oh, I get to do this. I'm very grateful for that stuff with, and yeah, it's, yeah, like my daughter hadn't learned to really ride a bike. Her mom would never let me take the training wheels off, and it was always too dangerous, and that kind of stuff. To where now it's like you can't stop her. And yeah, and teaching her to ski was kind of the same deal. Like her mom always was there for that, and it was like cry to mom and not really go. Whereas now she's skiing black diamonds um, and yeah, just loving it and having a great time. She wants to water ski this summer, um, and she's just turned a brown belt in karate, and that was something like her mom just wanted her in dance and stuff. And I'm not trying to blame mom for holding her back. It was I wasn't stepping up then. I was allowing kind of mom's helicopter parenting to rule over it, and that's on me. I
Yeah,
wasn't.
and karate too is great.
That's been huge. Um, it is really good. She has really amazing instructors they build up the kids so well, and just build their confidence. It's been really a game changer for her to really come out of her shell. Um, And even I would say over the last few years, my daughter was almost kind of split, like personality wise, where she was one way with me and a different way with her mom, and I could see it. That's changing now. She's really coming out of her shell, and she's starting to just be herself. And she's not, it doesn't matter who she's with. She's just starting to really be herself. And every, like all her friends, parents, and family, everyone sees it and comments on how, wow, this is really her now, and that's been amazing to watch and be a part of. Because I mean, to just be like kind of blunt, or she was still letting her mom wipe her ass until she was 7 or 8, like just because she didn't want to stand up to her and tell her like, I got this, you know. And that's kind of an extreme example, but it's basically like, you can see from that one example explains it. Yeah, like that's kind of how things work. Um, which has been, like I said, her coming out of her shell now has been just amazing to watch and be a part of. And like that's been, like I said, probably the biggest, most positive thing coming from, going through the divorce and all that, which was not easy on anyone. So
Yeah, I was gonna say I can hear it. I can only imagine it wasn't easy, especially having her being a helicopter mom because she wants the control. She wants to be around the child probably all the time. She was around the child when, because she was a stay-at-home mom. So like, yeah, what were some of the like difficulties that you had to go through with that?
um, like before, like just the parenting part before splitting up, is that what you're asking?
After the split up, because she kind of has to let go because you have 50-50, so she kind of has to let go, but I can only imagine it was like probably really hard for her to do that, especially if she's that helicopter
So
parent.
that was kind of a hard thing to watch, as she kind of let go already. Um, uh, she this so she had an affair, and that kind of became her whole world. Um, she was kind of neglecting our daughter at that point, and didn't the 50-50 was pretty easy. It was more like she didn't necessarily like I don't know, I wouldn't say she didn't want her there, but when she was there, um, and I get all this is all from my daughter, like, and it's not, I never really asked her. She just kind of she always told me, like, or if I'd ask her, like, if she was sad, what she was sad about, and that kind of stuff. But I never asked her, like, what's going on at mom's type of thing. But so I don't know that I get 100% of the story, of course, especially from a child. But according to
Yeah.
my daughter, um, she spent most of her time in her room on her iPad when she was at her mom's house.
Yeah.
Which is starting to change. Things are getting better. It's been a few years, and then her situation is changing. There's still big differences. There's differences where everything here is an experience, and I mean, even my daughter said the other day that like all the food tastes better here. And which I took as, okay, well, her mom never cooked, right? I was the one who always cooked. Her
Yeah.
mom just basically burns herself more than she cooks food. Uh, it's just how it is. She never learned. But I've taught my daughter how to cook, and she's getting really good, and that really expanded her palate. So I took it to just to mean like, oh, we cook things here and stuff. And she goes, no, Dad, like, because I said kind of that to her. I was like, oh, your mom never learned, so that's like we cook, and that's why things. And she said, no, even the peanut butter and jelly tastes better here. And I kind of cracked up, and as a funny example, because I had literally like maybe 2 weeks before that, her mom asked me what peanut butter we get here, and I sent her a picture of it so she could get the same one. Because
Get the
apparently
same
she
thing.
got a complaint about it. I guess I don't know, but yeah,
That's
it was
funny.
funny.
Is your ex-wife still with that guy that she had an affair with, or
No, no, no. She's. I don't think she's capable of being by herself. Um, even when I first met her, I was convinced that she was still with the boyfriend before me, uh, just from the way he was acting, and like I was like, I don't think they split up. Like, um, but I told myself like, oh, don't make up stories. Like, trust her, and come to find out later, she still says that they were broken up, but whatever. But come to find out later, she had an affair on her first husband, and like, she seems to, relationships overlap. So, and I can get into that story of kind of like what we went through. So, and it'll kind of explain. Uh, we lived in just a single bedroom apartment, um, saving money and getting by and I was able to purchase us a house. Um, and it was a single bedroom, but it was over a big garage and it had a separate garage, so we were going to convert the downstairs. Um, so anyway, I hired a local guy, to help me do the remodel, and by the time we finished the remodel, I got her fucking the dude, right? So um, that was the affair guy, and we, I confronted her about it, and I just watched her completely change who she was, or at least who I thought she was. Let's say, to where, and she was just hated me, screaming at me all the time now, and leaving every day and night to go be with this guy. Even taking our daughter along with her the whole time, every day.
And you knew she was going to see this guy. She said she was going to. Wow.
There was, yeah, I mean, she'd just be like, I'm going out, and she didn't drive. And this place I bought was kind of out in the sticks, and he lived a quarter mile away. So, so yes, it was. She'd be like, I'm just going out, and I'm like, well, why don't you just tell me that you're going over to this dude's house, so I at least know you're not in a ditch somewhere. And she'd be like, all right, yeah, I am. Like, she'd go over there every night pretty much, and then like come back in the morning for me to go to work, and then she'd take our daughter back over to his house during the day.
Are you at any point being like, just trying to figure out like how we're gonna split up, or are you like, we're gonna get back to like we're gonna fix this? Like, how are you dealing with that? Because that's a lot.
It was hard. It was definitely hard. And I ended up joining this program, to try and save the marriage, and which the program was great. I was in it for almost 3 years, even after being divorced, because it was just very helpful, and it was kind of a bait and switch program, like where it's the ads were like, save your marriage, and they're like, hey, now that you're here, we're not here to save your marriage.
Right.
We're here to fix you. We're here to help you. And their mission statement was along the lines of helping men become the best version of themselves, so that children don't have to go through a broken home. Okay, it's called the Bulletproof Husband. Yeah, I've since left the program, but I'm in their sister program, the Bulletproof Father. And I can't say enough good things about the guys and coaches in that program. They really helped, just help me get through it and see things in a different way.
And now is that because you were able to talk to other people going through something like that with you, and as your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to like, vent and cry and talk to other men who have been through similar or were going through similar, and men who would hold me accountable, and really like call me out when I was full of shit, and keep me on track, and keep me out of that victim mode, where you feel like it's all her fault, and and not that I'll never make excuses. What she did was fucked up, and she did a lot more fucked up shit. But I can at least take ownership of how we got there, and like, even though I was a good husband, a good provider, I was still not meeting all of her needs, and I wasn't a great husband. I could have been better, you know. So there's, you know, accountability to be had there, um, which I know a lot of guys will be like, no, fuck that, f that bitch, you know, like that's, you know, it's all her fault and all that and stuff. But which being a victim sucks. Like you don't want to stay on that road, you know. Like you got to own your own shit, and that's the only way you have power to get better and improve your life and keep going forward. Because certainly I wanted to kill the motherfucker she was with too. I mean, I had,
Yeah.
believe me, I had those thoughts, and I even uh, ended up on the phone with a guy who talked me out of it. Basically, like, you know, if you do this, like your daughter then doesn't have a dad, you will get caught. Like, you
Right,
know.
right. You throw away your life, even though it feels good at
Yeah,
the
yeah, and
time.
that's,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that was, you know, in the early days, it was pretty rough because I mean, we went through that for like 8 months before we decided to sell the house and move
Oh
on and
wow.
stuff. And which, and during that time, it was rough. Obviously, for me, it was rough for my daughter. There were times, you know, like she would beg mom not to leave at night, like every night, just begging her, "Don't leave, don't leave," uh, and then just crying, and I'm left there with her crying, and then I'm crying, and you know, I'm trying to console my
Yeah.
daughter and figure things out, and that's where I say like she just checked out. She, you know,
Yeah.
and then so we sold the house and separated, and she moved 2 hours away, um, out in the desert where she hated it. She hated it. My daughter hated it, but that's where he wanted her to live. Um, so I know that, like I said, he was right around the corner, but he spent a lot of his time at his parents' place, which was the 2 hours away. So she ended up moving like a half mile from his parents' house because that's where he wanted her to live.
So when you guys had to do the split custody, you guys were driving 2 hours
I
to
was. She didn't drive, so yeah,
transfer.
4 hour round trip,
Oh,
twice
that's
a week.
right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Um,
And did you guys go to court at all, or
no,
is this just what you guys
no,
came up with?
we did everything pretty amicably.
Yeah, that's
There
good.
there was only one, I don't even want to call it a fight because I didn't fight, but there was like we were doing 50-50, and then came one day and was like, I want 70. Um, and I just told her no. Like there's that's not happening. Um, we're gonna do 50-50. Um, and if that doesn't work, we can spend all our money in court. Um, and we
Right.
can both be broke. And Annika, that's our daughter, Annika, I said it will be the one who loses. So
Yep.
that's how it is. And you know, she screamed and yelled and foamed at the mouth and went back and forth for a while I just stood there. And then about 2 weeks later, she was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's such logical thinking. Like, it's just so simple. Like, to do that instead of going to court, you're both just blowing money. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing right now. And I wish, I could be amicable with my
Are you
ex.
in
And it's
court?
just
You're
like,
in court
why
now?
can't we just get along? Yeah,
I'm
man,
sorry.
six
Oh,
years,
shit.
still
That
going.
sucks.
It's unbelievable. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
rough. That's something I am grateful for, that she wasn't completely running on logic or running on emotions, rather, that she was able to see the logic
yeah,
and be okay. And I know by that point too, she was starting to see um, that our daughter benefited from being with me. Right? She definitely was
yep.
benefiting from her time with me, uh, and also, like I said, at that time, I don't think she really cared. I think it was more of a like, she should be with me, I'm going to take her kind of a thing, rather than she really wants to spend the time with her.
Right, right.
Because that was kind of their honeymoon phase. They moved in together, like I said. So she doesn't drive, so I even got the U-Haul and moved her into that apartment. Uh, and according to my daughter, he was like, as soon as I drove away, he pulled up and moved right in. Um,
Dude, what a good man.
he was
Holy
something.
shit.
Um, but
Wow.
that got taken care of anyway. So that was hard though, especially when my daughter, like, she hadn't ever slept by herself. when we finished the construction on the house, that was the first time she got her own bedroom, which she still never slept in alone. So she had never, that she was 6 at this time and never slept by herself. And then her first night in this new strange apartment, um, her mom kicked her out of the room. I was like, no, Joel needs a place to sleep, so you got to go sleep in your room.
Oh,
And that, so
man.
she's
Yeah.
always slept since then, except when he was out of town. Then she would run to her mom's room and sleep, but like she always slept in her own room then. Which, so I made her a prompt when she told me that, and she, she was crying and like wanted to sleep in my room, in my new place. So I was, yes, of course you can. And I made her a promise then that I said, look, I'll never make you sleep in your own room until you're ready. When you tell me you're ready, then we'll do that. As long as you want me to sleep in the room. And to this day, I have two beds in her room because when she's here, she wants me to sleep in
Yeah.
her room. And she's 9 now. So
That's awesome. Yeah, well, yeah, I do the same. I do the same with my kid's 11 and I have to put her to bed every night and I end up falling asleep, but I'll, wake up at midnight, go back to my room. She'll wake up, notice that I'm not there. She'll come get me and then I have to get up again and go put her back to bed. I'm like, it's tough,
it
but
is.
I know I'll miss it when they're up.
Yeah, for sure. They grow up and it's like, yeah, just it's fine to sleep with them. And I see that what people question all the time on some of these groups and Facebook and stuff where they're like, is it still okay that I'm sleeping in the same room with my daughter, whatever? And I'm always encouraging them, being like, yeah, it's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's why we have 2 beds. So we're not like, you know, it's not, we're crammed in one bed anymore. I at least got us into 2 different beds. That's a good, I figured that's a step enough. And when she's ready, she'll be fine in her own room. And I'm sure she would be fine because she sleeps in her own room at her mom's house, and has for a long time. But she just doesn't want it.
It's just the comfort of having you.
Yeah, and that even to the point where the first place I got was just a 1 bedroom because it was just what was available and what I found where I, closer to my work and where we live in the mountains. And eventually I went to look at a 2 bedroom, and my daughter instantly started crying when I told her it was a 2 bedroom. And I was driving over there, and I pulled over and stopped and got her to calm down a little bit and asked her what was going on. And she was like begging me, like, please don't do this. Don't make me do this. And I was like, don't do what? She's like, well, this is what mom did. Don't make me sleep in my own room. Like, don't kick me out of your room like mom did, And I was like, hey, look, I promised you.
Is it something so simple?
Yeah.
Man. But we don't even
Yeah.
realize
And I was like, wow, okay, like that really hit her. And I was like, no, I promised you. Like, you're going to have your own room, but I will still sleep in the room with you. And I was like, I'm going to get you, like, we picked out the bed together. That's where we got the 2 separate beds, I was like, oh, this splits it up, gives you more room to play in here. Like, we both will sleep in here and all that. And then she was fine. And we went and looked at the place, and she was like, oh, this is cool. Like, but it was, yeah, I didn't know how much that was going to hit her. Like, even just the mention of a 2 bedroom. And she was like, no. So it obviously stuck with her, and I did tell you, that drive was, she's since moved. I've convinced her after she broke up with the douche canoe, and already was in this relationship with this other guy, but she didn't want to live out there anymore. She never liked it out there. So she was looking at other places, and some of them were even farther away. And I told her, that ain't fucking happening. Like, you need to move within like this mile radius. But this is when we actually wrote down paperwork and started to file. And, I said, you're not moving outside of like this 60-mile radius or whatever it was on the paper.
Because what school district does your daughter stay at? Yours or hers?
So she's homeschooled. That's kind of the best way we can make it work. But she is in through a charter school.
Yep.
And it kind of jumped around. We'll just say that. It wasn't necessarily like where it was supposed to be, and now it's where we both live. So she switched charter schools to be where we are now. But yeah, it did. I convinced her to move closer, but with the caveat that I help her pay rent. So, which I'm happy to do, honestly. I give her money for her rent, which I was spending in gas anyway, plus all the time. And that was over a 8,000-foot pass all year round. And there were times, plenty of blizzards in the winter where it was, it was a 5-6 hour trip sometimes.
I mean, she has no idea how lucky she is to be with somebody, or with somebody like you. I know obviously it ended, but most people wouldn't do that, and a lot of people would like almost maybe shit on you for being like, why are you paying her rent, why are
Oh,
you doing this?
guaranteed.
But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, at the end of the day though, it's all
Yeah,
about your kid and what's best
exactly.
for her. You know what I mean? And that's what you're looking at. You're not looking at any of the petty bullshit that's
No,
happening.
no. And I
That is big ups to
thank you,
you on
sir.
that.
And I've always been really kind to her and treated her fairly and well. And that because of my daughter, like obviously there's been resentment and stuff that I have to deal with. And the resentment comes back sometimes, you got to just deal with it. It gets easier and easier, but it was pretty hard at first. There was a lot of anger and that kind of stuff, of course. But yeah, it's like you said, it's what's best for our daughter. And that's the way I look at it. It's not, I don't even really look at her as my ex anymore. It's just Annika's mom, because it helps separate the old relationship that failed versus, well, she's always going to be her mom. So I need to treat her as such and provide an example for my daughter.
That's exactly it, because they see, in her, at her house and at your house, they see how you treat each other. So she's gonna, hopefully it's all good. So then when she gets into a relationship, she'll understand like, oh, this is how
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
treat my husband or whatever it might be.
Yeah. And obviously you can't control what happens in their house. But you don't ever want to belittle or badmouth her mom, because that weighs on her. It's not seen as, she can't separate. The children can't separate. They're like, oh, that's just about mom. That becomes about her. Children can't really separate that until they get older and start seeing things. And she'll figure things out on her own. I'm sure she's already figured out plenty about what happened and why things are the way they are. Because she's badmouthed the douche canoe a lot, and she doesn't badmouth anybody. And your listeners will be happy to know. I never wished this, but I didn't shed any tears over it when. So they broke up, and he ended up killing himself. So
No way.
at least, I mean, I don't know exactly how it happened. I didn't get the report, but it appeared to be drugs, and he seems to OD'd.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't shed a tear either, but
No.
damn.
And I comforted
Yeah.
her over it. I knew that she'd been suffering a loss, and I comforted her, and because she came to me for comfort at that time. And
Good for you.
like,
Oh my God.
you have to separate your own feelings from what it means for your family, even if whatever your family looks like, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I can only imagine how hard that must be. I mean, you really like that group that you were talking about must have helped you get to where you are to be able to do stuff like
100%.
that.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
that's unbelievably hard.
It's
Yeah.
I don't do those things because it's what she deserves, right? I do those things because that's who I am, and it's what my daughter deserves. You treat her mom like shit, and then she's going to be okay with some guy treating her like shit. I mean, um, so that's the way I've always tried to look at it. And yes, the group, really, really amazing group of coaches that really can, see through the bullshit and like help you find your way and like, get on a call with a coach and start saying one thing, and he'll be like, whoa, 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 listen, I know you're saying this and you're asking help for this, but here's what's really going on with you. Like, and not every time, sometimes, but this is just an example of where like sometimes you don't always see, you know, what's going on. You're talking to, one like talking about, oh, mom's doing this, or, and how do I fix what mom's doing here? And they're like, well, here's where you're creating all this resentment and expectations over what your mom's supposed to be doing. So let's focus on you, that,
Yeah, that person's bringing you back,
yeah,
back to course, back on
seeing through
track,
your
and that's
bullshit
what you
and then
need.
bringing you back on
Yeah,
track. Exactly. And that's, so yeah, that
yeah,
group was very helpful for me. And I stayed in it well after being divorced for that reason, just to kind of keep me on track for a while, until I felt like I wasn't getting any more benefit from it.
yeah. That's awesome. So you guys have 50-50 now. Um, she moved
Yeah.
closer to
Yeah.
where
She's
you
only
are.
about half an hour away
Yeah,
now, 40 minutes maybe.
that's awesome. That's definitely worth the partial
Yeah.
rent
Yeah. It's
for
huge.
sure.
And it's also in the mountains,
Yeah,
not back in the desert. So like my daughter's way happier. She's like, oh, it's so much better. Just like, being up here, being closer to her friends, you know, uh, and just back in a cooler climate. That's, more fun things to do. Because, down there, and when they were in the desert, it was like they didn't go outside in the summer really. It was just too hot.
right.
If they did, it was like straight to the swimming pool, which was awesome. But that was it. Like, go jump in the pool, and then like you got to go back inside. It's just too hot outside to do anything. So like she wasn't riding her bike down there, um, you know, until like the seasons would change, and then it would get, winter time. It'd get super cold and snowy down there, which it does here too. But like, we go skiing versus like, oh, it snowed an inch and it's just cold. Uh,
Right.
so there was a lot of benefits there, and yeah, just the obviously the being closer and the less travel time, and has been huge. That's been yeah, like not spending all that time constantly driving is like,
Yeah, that's 2 hours there, 2 hours back. That's unbelievable. Especially right, you're just dropping them off and then turning right back around. I mean, that's a lot.
oh yeah, no, she never even let me in the house there. Like literally, like there were times when like it was there was one time in particular, it was like less than 10 degrees out. Okay, it was single digits, and my daughter refused to wear any clothes, like sweatshirt or anything, in the drive, because she's like, it's so hot in the car, I'm just not going to wear it. Like, all right, fine. Well, so we drove, and then we get out of the car, and 20 feet from the car to the door, um, and my daughter's hugging me and won't let go, and she's shivering, and like I'm trying to step into like her little entryway, which you can't even see in the house. So even if her boyfriend was there, whatever, like you can't. It's just a set of stairs, and she's like slammed the door on us. And I was like, really? Like, my daughter's shivering. She won't let go of me, and I'm like literally trying to get her into your house. Like, I don't know. That's just how lost she was. But like literally never let me into that house until um, they lost power and she couldn't get into the garage, and I needed to like step through to like open the garage door. Um, I don't know. It was funny. Like I would joke about it with some of the guys I talked to about like, they're like, oh, like she almost let me across the threshold today. I swear.
She almost did. I got another inch.
Yeah, pretty funny. Like, just, I don't know. You never know what goes through their heads. And um, yeah, there was, yes, she was lost and definitely embarrassed. Um,
Hmm.
which those are her words. She'd said she was ashamed of herself and embarrassed, and even to the point, I think, where she wasn't really even talking to her friends anymore. Initially, she badmouthed me to all of our friends and her family, telling everyone that I lost my mind and I was on drugs, and um, which everybody saw through pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Even
Yep.
her best friends stopped talking to her, and we became better friends because they have children, the
Mhm.
same age. All our, how that happens. Your friends end up being your kids' friends, kids' friends' parents. And
Yep.
um, so I'm now actually really close with the two moms of my daughter's best friends who were my ex's best friends. And
And
they
it's
don't really
funny
even
too
talk.
because, like, clearly it's a pattern. Yeah, clearly it's a pattern for her, having an affair or whatever, if she did it with her first boyfriend and then or her first husband and then you. Um, I mean, as much she probably, feels bad and maybe regrets doing it because she lost, her family, she lost everything, but, it's I, maybe something happened in her childhood, but like that just seems like who she is because it just seems like a recurring
Yeah,
thing.
and that brings up a good point of and she did have a messed up childhood. Her parents went through a really nasty divorce, um, like to where they sent her off to another country to be with family for a while because it was so bad. Um, and she has basically told me she has like no childhood memories from like younger than like 11. So clearly there's a lot of issues she needs to work on there. There's a lot of childhood stuff, like you say, and that's one thing I encourage men to consider with these women is, and I try and think of it this way too, is like especially having a daughter. She was once a sweet, innocent little girl, right? And life brought her to where she is now and the behaviors that she has now, just like it does for all of us. We all have kind of childhood issues and trauma that we have to deal with. We're not perfect. I still am working on stuff and dealing with stuff and trying to constantly improve, far from perfect. So um, I try not to come from a place of judgment. To just, I want to encourage men to think that way of like, oh, like she's not this evil person, right? It's She has issues that life has put upon her that makes her behave this way. And again, that's not making excuses or like giving her permission to do whatever she wants. It's just, that's the way I'm looking at it, to have more empathy um, for her and let her do her thing, and have her be responsible for her actions, and I'll be responsible for mine.
If you could give some advice to some dads out there, what would it be?
Well, really, just that, having empathy, um, and working with, I mean, if you're in my situation or yours where you're going through a divorce and stuff like that, that goes a long ways. I'm certain that things would not have gone as well um, with our situation if I hadn't been kind and empathetic to her and treated her well, and like, um, if I had really let all that bitterness and anger come at her, um, we probably would have gone to court. And that's not to say that you can avoid that all the time, but it doesn't hurt. So just being kind and empathetic, and um, really just fuck your feelings, and don't worry about the emotions. Like you have certain things you have to stand on, like custody of your child, your financial well being, uh, those kinds of things where those are like um, those are must haves. These are like, this is what I need. This is what I need to survive. This is what I need for my child's life. Um, and just let everything else go. Makes things a lot easier if you know what terms you stand on, and everything else doesn't really matter.
That literally is probably the number one thing because, for any other, the dads that are listening, it's like if you haven't been to court, you don't want to go to court. It's not fun. Everybody loses. You just spend money, and it's just a shitty road. So yeah, if you can get along, show some empathy, be kind. As hard as it might be, too. She might have, had an affair, and it's all on her, or whatever. But it's like, you know, get out of your feelings. That's a good one. That's, I think, the most important one, because if you don't have to go through court, I mean, it's a shitty ride, and you both lose. You're just
Yeah,
spending
everybody
money.
loses. The only ones who win are the
Yep.
lawyers, right? They get all the money. Um,
Yep.
yeah, and then and obviously, it's as men, it's better for us to avoid court because we usually lose the way the system's set up. So um,
Yep.
that's a rough one for sure, and I am grateful that we were able to do it without going down that road, because I don't know that I would get 50-50 custody through the courts.
Right.
And it often doesn't matter that, like, things like, oh, she just locks herself in her room a lot, and is an iPad, and well, dad's always doing stuff with her and teaching her stuff, and like they don't take all that stuff into consideration, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that I'm the greatest dad in the world, or that like mom's the horrible, like like she does good things for her still. It's just there was a long period of time where I think she wasn't doing a lot, because she was in that la la land.
Exactly. Yeah, she was distracted with
Sure.
the new
Yeah, and
relationship.
the new boyfriend he's a single dad. He seems like a better person. I don't know him too well, but I can see the difference. Like, that's one thing I've noticed for sure with my ex, is that she kind of transforms to be. She changes herself to be with whoever she's with. And
Mm.
that was something that I didn't kind of realize during our marriage, and I kind of lost myself in a little bit being more like her, which um, was a big issue for us, because she wasn't really showing her personality. She was showing me what she thought
Right.
I wanted her to be.
What you wanted to
So,
see.
like, um,
Yeah.
losing myself, then she was losing herself, because she was like, oh wait, my rock, the person I'm looking to, like, that's I think part of that childhood is she's not comfortable really showing who she is and being her own strong self. So, um, but that was a big failure on my part, of like losing myself in that marriage, and thinking that happy wife, happy life nonsense. Um, whereas I guess my point with that was that she became pretty nasty with the first boyfriend, who was a total piece of shit, and I knew that, like, from I worked side by side with him on the house remodeling for 4 months, and I was like, this guy, I want him out of here as soon as we're done. He's kind of a piece of shit. And then to obviously find my wife having sex with him, and like having a full on long affair, was like that kind of woke me up to, like, there must be something wrong with me, was like how it made me feel. Like,
Mm.
there must be something wrong with me if she's doing that with this guy. Like, I lost to this guy. Like, okay, I really
Right.
need to
Right.
look at myself and figure out what's going on here. So, but I can see her now changing for the better, being with this new guy. And that is a hard one. Like, they apparently moved in together after only being together for like 2 months. But
Wow.
knowing my ex, she was probably with him a little bit longer, like the overlap. Um,
Right.
but like, I do see a better difference in her. So I'm thinking that's a reflection on him, that, maybe he's a decent guy. He's just a single dad. Like I said, I don't know much about him. So I'm hoping that he's a good guy. My daughter hasn't said anything negative about him. So, and really gets along with his daughter. So there's some positives there. I'm hoping. Yeah.
Oh, nice. This is a
Yeah.
good daughter.
Yeah. A couple of
Yeah.
years older, but not
Yeah.
too much different. Only like 2 years older than my daughter. So they get along really well. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to last or not, but at least it's better than the old situation. So
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really
no,
appreciate
thanks for
that.
having me on, Dan. I hope that people enjoy the episode, and let them bash me if they want to, because I'm sure that there'll be plenty of haters saying that I'm being an idiot or whatever. But
Hey, but I'll tell you what, it's them being stuck in that victim mentality that you were talking about earlier. Once you get out of that, nowhere else but up.
yeah,
So
absolutely, man.
awesome. All right. Thank
Can't
you.
hold me down. You can hold me down. You can't hold me down. You can't hold me down.